Hello, hello, hello. Very welcome to a very special live stream today. So as you can see, I'm alone here. So Miri is not joining this live stream. And this has a very simple reason because we're going to travel in the next days. We have to pre-record some videos and like all the other stuff also needs to be done. And so Miri will focus on her translation part today. And so we decided that I will do the live stream on my own, but you can still ask your questions. And maybe you have questions just for me. And I'm very happy to answer them. And we just had the German live stream already. And there was a very good question, and it was in which way did Miri's eating disorder like affected me or my life? Yeah, so I will we'll talk a little bit about that. But please make sure once you join, just ask your questions at any time in the chat, and I will also just write it in the chat now. Please ask your questions here at any time. And a smiley. Yeah, so feel free to interrupt me and I'm happy to answer your questions. So how did Miri's eating disorder affected me? That's a very good question. And yeah, I would just tell you the story a little bit. So Miri went vegan in 2013, I think it was. Yeah, and back then she had her very good reasons for it, but as we discovered later, it was a mixture of reasons and maybe not only good reasons. But there will be coming another video talking about this very soon, and it's going to be a video where we are both talking about it, not just me. Yeah, and once Miri went vegan, she basically said to me, "Why don't you try it as well?" And that was for me and myself. Back then I was a meat eater. I loved eating meat, and I'm pretty sure it will also still taste very attractive to me. Or I would like the taste if I try it again. But yeah, back then I said, okay, I will just try it, and if I realize it's nothing for me, then I can just go back to eat meat again. So I tried, and then I already felt some changes, positive ones, and so I never went back to eating meat. So I'm still vegan, and that was as I said, so for me, I turned vegan in 2014, so just 1 year later than Miri. And the question is, did she try at that point? Did she try to put her like eating disorder driven decision? That's what we discovered later, that there was, as I said, it was a mixture of reasons to go vegan for her, and that her eating disorder was one part of it. So it also made her go vegan. And the question is, did she try to put this also onto me because of her eating disorder? And tried to convince me to go vegan just by her eating disorder. And I can very genuinely say that no, this was not the case. So her, how do you say, her reasons for like proposing to me to go vegan as well were just out of very good will. Yeah, she was just looking for the best for me, and so this was never her eating disorder like proposing that. And then later on, further down the road, yeah, like in our everyday life, there of course have been some situations where like her eating disorder, um, yeah, came into to play again. Yeah, so we constantly in the last couple of years, we're talking about this, like how her eating disorder is in the everyday life, basically. And we've already done some videos, or Miri did some videos about it, and we've talked about it in other live streams as well. And there's also future videos coming where I talk about this. Um, the eating disorder has always been there, but it never tried me to convince me to also like fall into this trap, kind of. Um, but for me, it was really important, and there was another question in the German live stream: how to help people with an eating disorder as a family member, as a good friend, or whatever. And the thing is, most people just don't know how to spot an eating disorder. Like when you see a very underweight person outside on the streets, then chances are that this person has a restrictive eating disorder. Yes, and everybody can see and identify this. But as soon as a person is at normal weight, nobody will think that this person has an eating disorder. And so for me as well, it was kind of not evident that Miri still had an eating disorder. So I was thinking, oh, she's back to normal weight, she's doing fine, she's like eating everything, or at least like a normal amount of food. And so I thought she's fine. The eating disorder, that's past now, everything is gone, and we just continue doing life together. But it turned out that was not the case. So the eating disorder was still there. And that was a big learning curve for me, because I had to really know, or get to know, the tricks of the eating disorder, how it's like hiding behind other things like decision making, or like arguments, and so on. And this was really a part which I had to learn, and it helped quite a lot to talk to her. And we in general, we talk a lot with each other about everything, basically. And it really helped for me that she opened up, and also gave insight to her thoughts, the thoughts of the eating disorder. So that I had the chance to actually learn how it looks like for her inside her head, basically. And this really, I think this was the most powerful to me, to actually learn how the eating disorder is, and then to see, okay, that's the eating disorder, and to really also identify it. Yeah, that was a big thing for me, like in everyday life, basically. But then also to be able to not only identify, but also to isolate this pattern, and say, okay, and say to Miri, hey, I realize this is going on right now, and I think this might be the eating disorder speaking, or thinking, or doing stuff. Am I right? And then Miri said, yeah, you're right. That's the eating disorder. And she also didn't want it to be true, but just by the fact that I called this out to her, she was able to admit, okay, that's the eating disorder. And then we both were on the same page. We both knew, okay, that behavior, that decision making, that's because of the eating disorder. And then we both were able to tackle this, and to see, okay, what can we do to overcome this, or to the eating disorder thoughts, or like the stuff from the eating disorder gets like smaller or suppressed more and more. And that really helped for me to learn and to educate myself about the topic of restrictive eating disorders, and not only like the medical stuff, like things how your body responds to it, but also the mental stuff. More importantly, actually, the mental stuff. And yeah, that's something I can really recommend for somebody who's getting in touch with a person who has a restrictive eating disorder, to really educate yourself. And the book of Tabitha Farrar really helps, because what she has written down in her book, that's super, super strong and powerful, because it really it's like a guideline to really understand what the eating disorder is all about. And yeah, so I can really recommend to read this book. And if you are someone who is struggling with a restrictive eating disorder, and you want to have help from like your personal surrounding, from a family member, from a friend, from maybe a work colleague you have a good relationship with, then make sure to not only talk to them, but to also give them the chance to educate themselves. And don't educate them, because chances are that the eating disorder is taking over again. But just give them the resources, like the book of Tabitha Farrar, and there are probably also other resources around. Just give it to them so they can educate themselves. And that makes it a lot easier for them to understand and also support you in your journey. Yeah. So once again, if you have any questions, just type them in the chat. I'm really happy to answer them. Also questions to Miri. She will try and answer the questions later on in the comments, or yeah, then they will become comments after this live stream is over. But also maybe a question towards me about Miri, or about what I think she's doing or did, what she did, or what my perception of things was. Just feel free to ask. I would really love to answer your question. And in the meanwhile, what am I going to do? Maybe tell some jokes? No, I'm not. Yeah, what else can I share? I think a good thing, if you're a person who wants to help somebody with a restrictive eating disorder, it's you have to listen. Yeah, you have to listen to this person, and you have to have empathy, because it doesn't really help the person in need if you just start talking and say, oh, do this, do that, and I think you should do whatever. You have to listen first. It's so important to sit down and just listen to the person, and try to understand, really to dig deep and understand what's going on. And only then you can speak and give advice, because then you know what it's really about. So thank you for the first question. Z is asking, being that you are a supporter, is there anything that you have done that maybe now you wouldn't have done it, or would not have done it? I hope that makes sense. Yeah, it does make sense. Thanks again very much for this question. And I have to think about it for just a couple of seconds. So basically, you're asking, do I regret something I did or I did not do? That's a very good question. I think I don't really regret it, but I think, as I said earlier, I could have done better to actually identify the mental part in Miri's eating disorder. As I said, the outer appearance of her was just normal. There was no evidence of an eating disorder or what else. And I think I could have done better to realize what's really going on in her mind, that she's still struggling with like food or decision making about food in general. But I wouldn't. I don't regret it. I mean, that's life. You live, you learn. I mean, I can only do my best, and that's what I did. So, but if you're someone in the same situation I was in, like a couple of years back, then I would like to really encourage you to start thinking about it, and maybe you are able to spot things earlier than I did, and and start talking to this person. But don't be pushy. As I said, listen first, because if you're too pushy, they will just shut down, like close the blinds, and you're not gonna reach them. That's probably a given fact. And the other way around, is there anything I should not have done? Good question. I can't think of any, which sounds a bit like I'm doing everything right, which I'm definitely not doing. I just do my very best because I'm someone who wants to help. I wanted to help Miri and still want to help her, but also to help you out there with my 2 cents. But yeah, let me know if you have more questions. I think we'll probably end the live stream very soon. If you still have a question, just type it in. Otherwise, it will be a very short one. But nevertheless, I think a very powerful one for someone who's really looking forward for advice in terms of helping people with a restrictive eating disorder. This word is really complicated for me. But yeah. And yeah, let us know, or let me know, how you like this kind of new format, because that's maybe something we will continue to do in the future, every now and then, to have a live stream with just myself or maybe just Miri, because it makes it a little easier for us to split our time up, that so the other person can do something separate in the meantime. Thank you for joining. Thank you for the question you asked. It was a pleasure for me to answer. And for everyone who's looking or watching the live stream back, feel free to ask any question in the comments. I'm also very happy to answer them in the comments, and see you around. Bye-bye.